Hey everybody, it's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power, your online Bible study where we are walking through the Bible in a year. Today is January 21st and we're in the book of Job. Today what I'd like to do is take a step back and look at the three friends. There is an interesting series of three going on. First of all, we have three friends. We have three friends that are making three of the same arguments, and we have three friends that are making three of the same mistakes. So that's what we're going to look at today. Let's start with some of the same arguments. You know, these are elder friends of Job that have come to see him. And we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? We have to think that they are looking out for Job's best interests and really, really want to help him. But they make some arguments based on inaccurate assumptions or faulty assumptions about God, and here they are. First, they believe that God blesses the righteous and punishes the wicked. That might be true to some extent, but it's not completely true in that sometimes God does bring affliction upon the righteous for their own good, and sometimes it's very hard for us to understand or see all that, but this belief that they have is slighting God to some extent because it's not giving him the acknowledging him in his full wisdom and what he might be doing in this circumstance. Let's look at number two. The three friends have a second common argument, and that is that God has afflicted you. Well, they had no idea about the discourse that went on in heaven. They had no idea that the devil had come to the Lord in heaven and had accused Job. God is not afflicting Job. God is allowing the devil to do these things as a means of a test. Now, the three friends also say that Job must have sinned, and that must have been the reason for his present difficulty. And we know that that is really pigeonholing God into being a God that only does things because of consequence. And that's not always the case. So here, Job is one after another defending himself. I did not sin. I did nothing against the Lord. In fact, even through his present difficulty, he never once curses God, and that is just absolutely amazing. You know, when we get to the New Testament, we will see the revelation of God in Jesus Christ, and we will see that spirituality in greater revelation. This, what we're reading about today, is a very limited view of God, and it's a very old time view of God. And as God reveals himself through history, I mean, he hasn't even at this point revealed himself to his people. He hasn't chosen a people yet, Israel, for his very own. And so we can kind of understand how people have come to know God and how they have understood him. When we get to the New Testament, we'll also come to understand that suffering is not always caused by sin, but that is a very real and present belief at this time in history. So I think the application for us at this point, as we kind of study the friends and study the discourse going back and forth, is that oftentimes when we befriend others and try to console others, you know, the Bible tells us to bear one another's burdens, but it's often very dangerous for us to try to pigeonhole God in a certain situation or to analyze and diagnose what God might be doing in another's life. Now, the three friends also make three mistakes. And the first one is that they are failing to sympathize. They are sitting on their perch and they are looking down and they are telling their friend Job everything that is wrong with him. They are failing to sympathize. Number two, we've talked about them having a rigid concept of God, which might to some extent be true but wasn't completely true. And number three, they're very proud. They're very proud of their beliefs and their understandings of the Lord, and they're certainly not afraid to share that with Job. Do you think that they're being very effective with Job? in consoling him or helping him to see a whole new perspective? Probably not. If we look at Job's response, he keeps saying, I believe that God is just, and I believe that he is powerful, and I have not sinned. He keeps saying that, and that's true. We understand the story to be true about it. And he also has this expectation that God will vindicate him. And he has this sense that if I could just talk with God, I could plead my case to him and he would vindicate me. Do you see the contrast between the Old and the New Testament? In the New Testament, we have an intercessor in Jesus Christ, a high priest that allows us to come before the throne and talk face to face with God. This is not a realization that Job had or that his friends had in their life. Praise be that we live this side of the cross and can have that intimacy with God that they lacked. And we can apply some of the understandings of Job to our own life. If Job had known about this conference in heaven, there would have been no need for him to have faith through his circumstance. And oftentimes that is true of us. If we were to really understand what is happening spiritually in the heavenly realms in our circumstance, there would be no reason for us to have faith through that circumstance. That's why, of course, God could tell us everything that was happening, but that's why he chooses to reveal only certain aspects of our situation for us, because he wants us to be dependent on him and to walk with him and have faith through everything. Now, let's talk about in chapter 9, we just absolutely can't miss this. There are a lot of attributes of God described in chapter 9, specifically things that God can do. And that's how I want to leave you today, is thinking about how powerful and wonderful your God is, how capable he is, that he can walk with you and you are able, with God's help, to handle whatever it is he is calling you to do this day. Look in chapter 9 what God can do. He can move mountains. He can cause earthquakes. He can cloud over the sun and the stars. He's hung each one of those stars in place. He eclipses the sun, and he stretches out the heavens like a tent over the earth. It even says in chapter 9, he treads on the waves. Our God is certainly a great and glorious God. And it's important that we keep him in mind, keep the bigness and the majesty in mind when we're going through our daily life, when we're addressing our problems, and certainly when we just look around at the beauty of our creation, the beauty of everything God has given us, and we just give him glory and we just give him the praise that he is due. Now tomorrow we're going to look at something you might not have expected to pull out of the book of Job, and that is going to be sort of a discourse on prayer. And as we look at Job in tomorrow's reading, try to find any passage that you can find about prayer, because we're going to have a lesson tomorrow as we look at the applications of prayer and what that can do in our life. So that's coming up tomorrow. I hope this lesson has been a blessing to you today. Thank you so much for being with me. Blessings to you and yours this day. Shalom.